another wine from Everflyht. I was there just yesterday, visiting the vineyard and enjoying the Rosé de Sagny up on top of the hill overlooking the vineyard. I have had this before. It wasn't on video. I didn't record any tasting notes. I remember this as being not quite as special as the Rosé de Sagny, but decent English fizz. Interested to revisit this. It was a couple of years ago now, I think, when I had that other one. So I'm interested to revisit this and see how it is now. It's an NV. It's their, well, they just call it Brut, but it means, you know, a classic cuvée, a white English sparkling. So it's probably going to be a blend of Chardonnay, Pinot Noir and Pinot Meunier, as these things usually are. I would guess more Chardonnay than the others, but I don't know, I could be wrong. I looked it up. It is 60% Chardonnay, 30% Pinot Noir, and the balance Pinot Meunier. The website for Everflyht is very good, I think. There's a lot of technical information there, right down to the soil type, Wealden clay. So on the nose, I'm getting, I would say, orchard fruit, apples, and a bit of citrus. So again, I feel like, I noticed this recently, I feel like I can possibly detect a hint of gooseberry here, but maybe that's something I imagine when I get a particular blend of sort of green apples and lemons. Apples and citrus, suggesting a Chardonnay dominant blend. Those are the characteristics that typically the Chardonnay tends to deliver more of, particularly if it's green apple. Red apple can be something that comes a bit from the Pinots. There is a subtle autolytic underpinning to that as well there, I would say. Overall, quite green on the nose. Green apples, tempted to say lime rather than lemon to keep the theme. Maybe gooseberries, I might be imagining that. On the palate, that is nice and tightly bound. Really like the zing there. Soft bubbles, I would say. I think I noticed something like this in the Rosé de Sagny as well. Slightly softer kind of a fizz, softer sort of mouthfeel, but not unpleasantly. I do feel like, once again, there are some mineral hints to that. And as I said, for the Rosé de Sagny, it's quite reminiscent of sparkling mineral water, and particularly sparkling mineral waters that aren't artificially carbonated. Was the original Perrier maybe naturally sparkling? You do get some, don't you? And they tend to be not as aggressively fizzy as those that have had CO2 added. So it's got that sort of character to it, which also works with that kind of mineral note. I'm being bitten by something. More fruit character there, but I think it's probably consistent with the fruit that I was finding on the nose. More orchard fruit, something citrusy, I think, flavour-wise. I think the Rosé de Sagny really sort of stands out as something a little bit different and a little bit unique. That's a very memorable wine. There's nothing wrong with this. It is a very competent bit of English fizz, I think. I think it is interesting to taste them sort of quite closely back to back, because that sort of naturally fizzy mineral water kind of character seems to be a bit of a house style between the two, which is interesting. I don't know if that somehow reflects the soil. I know that's always controversial. And I'm starting to get a little bit of almost sort of, I don't know, buttery or pastry-like character there on the palate, which is possibly autolytic, or possibly, I think there was a little bit of barrel fermentation for some of the base wines here, so I would have had a little bit of wood contact with at least a small amount of the Chardonnay, and that can sometimes impart those slightly sort of buttery notes. Not hugely so, it's subtle, but it's a nice extra dimension. I've brought my dinner to the heath to have with some wine, so just one of those little platters. I think I did a similar pairing with Nightimber a while back, one of those little platters of vegan sushi. And I think that will probably be a good pairing. I think these white English sparklings, that nice streak of acidity and all of that stuff, the minerality, that tends to go pretty well with something like sushi. Obviously, I mean, you know, the ideal pairing is sake. It's nihonshu, what do you call it? Rice wine. My favourite sushi item of these guys, inari sushi, the little pockets, fried seasoned tofu, filled with rice. Often in Japan, left as offerings to shrines to foxes. I think foxes are believed to be sort of spiritually important. So inari, I believe, is another word for fox in Japanese. Kitsune is the other one. I've got a friend, look. Hello.
Elizabeth, look.
It's vegan sushi. I don't think you'd like that.
Elizabeth, come. She's a thief. Elizabeth, no.
As a second course. I doubt you're interested in what I'm having for dinner, but as a second course, I'm having some cheddar and caramelised onion chutney rolls from Higgedy, which I'm eating with chopsticks for no good reason. This is probably a more vernacular food pairing for English sparkling. I've been sitting in the woods hiding from humanity when there probably would have been a reasonably nice sunset to have seen. A bit more pink that way around. I don't know, I think we are 5 minutes or so from the official moment of sunset, but to get a decent view of it on the heath you have to be on top of Parliament Hill, and if the weather is nice like it was today, or too nice, too hot for me, it's an absolute throng there. So, well, happy with my decision to just hide in the woods. There you go, that's the current state of Parliament Hill, top of Parliament Hill. As I said, a bit of a throng